Hello and welcome once again to the Ferret Business Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Yemmy the Ferret, aka Yemmy. And with me today is a retro game Let's Player who gets drunk on live stream and has gotten over 100 subscribers and only been on YouTube for 2 months. His name is NESJourney, and I welcome him to the podcast.
Hey Yemmy, glad to be here, buddy. Thanks for having me.
Wow, no problem. It's nice to have you here. If you want to check out his channel, the links will of course be down in the description along with his Twitter as well. So, you're joining us from the break room at your job?
Yeah, pretty much.
So what is your current profession?
Like sitting in, I guess what you would call my work area, but I'm enclosed. So like there's not like no one's going to be coming in like interrupting us really. I mean, it may happen, but highly unlikely.
All right. Sounds good.
All the bosses are gone, so I won't get in any trouble.
Oh, it's free range in the workplace, I guess.
I like it. No one bothers me.
So, what is your current profession?
So right now, I'm actually in between job titles. I was an equipment control specialist, which is a nice way of saying I wash IV poles all day.
Okay.
But right now, I'm actually being switched over to a distribution specialist. So that's a fancy way of saying I take medical supplies to the floors.
Oh, okay. Not too bad. Not too bad. Is it easy work then? Hard work?
It's definitely not physically hard at all, and it's a lot better than my other job that I had. So I've been with the company for 6 years. 5 of that I actually worked in food service, so that's not a very pleasant job.
I wouldn't think so. What kind of food service was it? Because I worked at McDonald's for about 3 years of my life.
Well, I'm sorry that you had to endure that for 3 years, but I worked for the hospital, so the job was great as far as I still had the same benefits and stuff like that, but it was just in the kitchen. It's hot. You're serving kids all day.
Oh, okay.
You know how kids eat, so yeah.
Yeah. So you work, what'd you say when did you start working today?
Oh, I go in at 2:30 p.m. till 11 p.m.
11 p.m. That's an interesting work day. It must really that's got to like really screw with your sleep patterns.
Well, it's not too bad. It just depends on what kind of day I've had. Usually I can go home and go right to sleep, and then I'm up at 7, 8 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, okay.
And then that way I have a lot of free time in the morning. That way I can do thumbnails or whatever for the channel. I usually record all of my videos in the morning time before I go into work for that day. So it's nice. It's quiet. There's not too much distraction at home because my wife and my daughter are away. So. Oh,
okay. Yeah. Well, it's not. I guess that's not too bad. Because I was just remembering back to after my job at McDonald's, I had to work the third shift at Kohl's, which is the clothing store.
Yeah.
And that took a toll on my life. I was in college at that same time, and I was working the midnight shift, and it was from 9 at night until 6 in the morning, and let's just say my grades were slipping a little bit.
Yeah, that would definitely be another beast altogether. Overnight, the overnight guy comes in while I'm still here, and I always ask him, I'm like, man, how do you do it? How do you go home and sleep during the day? And he's just like, you just get used to it. I'm like, I guess. Not for me.
Yeah. 3 months of doing it, and I was tapped out. I even got the those blackout blinds to make sure that the no sun would get through, but see, it was part-time, so I would be on for 3 days in a row, and then I would be off for 2, and I'd be back on for 3. And it was screwing with me. I was up all night, and I was bored out of my mind because I was still living with my parents at that time. And I was like, I can't turn up, I can't play video games, I can't do this, I can't do that because I'll be too loud. So
yeah.
it just, oh my gosh, hopefully I will never have to do that ever again.
Here's hoping.
Yeah. So, recently on your channel, you uploaded a video about the things you found at a local garage sale, which I guess will be pretty old by the time that this podcast actually gets uploaded. But what's the best thing you've found at a garage sale so far?
So I don't really do garage sales just because I don't have time to like hunt them down. Most of the stuff that I usually get, I find off of Craigslist and the Facebook Marketplace.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, the yard sign in the thumbnail was kind of deceiving and stuff, but I didn't want to put up like Facebook Marketplace. It just looked weird. But yeah, so I mean, it's basically the same concept, you know, except I just look through a bunch of ads.
Right.
But that's where I get most of my used retro stuff. I would say I've had two really great finds. One was a guy selling just all of his like used retro stuff, and I was the first person to see the ad, and it was a kind of a ways away. It was like 50 or 60 miles away. So I saw this ad and I was like looking through the pictures and I saw something and I was like, I gotta have this. I have to have this. So I called him up. I drove all the way over there. He's like, oh, do you want to look for everything? I was like, I just want to look at this one game. And so I looked at it, well, you know, and I was like, he's like, so what do you think? And I was like, here's, you know, take it, go away, because I want this. I was like, I don't want him to back out.
Right.
And this game was Mighty Final Fight, complete in box. So I paid $200 for the bundle, and this game was worth like $600.
Whew.
Just this one game. It was complete in box, pristine condition. It was probably the best Nintendo game in like condition I've ever seen in my life. I don't think anybody had ever played the game.
That's pretty
So
cool.
I eventually sold it for like, I think I got like 400 and something out of it, you know, after fees and stuff off eBay.
Right.
So I basically doubled my money off that. Plus there was a bunch of other box games. He had a couple Mario 3 boxes and just some other random stuff. So I probably made about $1,000 off of that bundle that I bought.
So it's kind of like an episode of Pickers if you think about it.
Yeah, it kind of is. If I could find some really nice spots to pick like that, I would definitely do that. But unfortunately, most places, if you go to like flea markets and stuff like that, they tend to know what they have.
Oh yeah.
And I usually just don't have enough time to kind of go on a regular basis. Like I have a friend who actually owns a retro store, and he goes all the time, and he's always asking me to go, and I'm just like, man, I have a job. Like I can't go like every day at 10 o'clock in the morning and go, you know, look for video games and waste gas. And anyway, but that's what he does. And then he gets really lucky. He gets people that just bring him great stuff, and he pays them like pennies on the dollar. And I'm like, how do you get these people to sell you this stuff for nothing? He's just like, they don't know what it's worth. I'm like, okay.
It's the Pawn Stars what's it called? I can't think of the word right now, but it's like the way Pawn Stars does it on the TV show.
Yeah,
like,
pretty much.
They try and be like, oh well, you know, there's a scratch here, and you know, they really play it up, and then you know they really swindle them really.
Yeah, I mean, I've never really seen him like swindle anybody per se. I've been there when he's done a couple deals, and it's just crazy that he'll be like, well, how much are you looking to get out of it? And they'll be like $20, and it'll be like a Nintendo in box, and I'm just like,
yeah,
okay.
I've been at my local comic book shop sometimes when people bring stuff in, and they'll bring in these like really old comic books, and they'll be like, hey man, these are like from the 80s, you know, what are they worth? And the guy's like, yeah, they're worth about $10 for this entire box. It's like, I kind of believe that, but then again, it's like, there's like 150 comic books here. There's got to be something in here that's worth a little bit more, but the people aren't willing to go through and actually search for them on eBay and actually write out what they want and blah blah blah, and you know, that's kind of where they get them, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know how people don't know, especially with anything old. It's like, at least just do a Google search. You'll find something, like, but to each their own.
Yeah, I guess
some people
so.
just want quick money.
That's true. Is what you recently found like the most expensive thing you've paid for, or has there been something like even bigger that you've found on Craigslist or something like that?
I think that was probably the most expensive bundle that I've ever found. And because I'm not one that I'm not going to really pay a lot of money for something, and just because I'm kind of cheap, and I'm married with a kid, so my funds are pretty small. But if there's something that I see and I know I can make money off of, I'm probably going to buy it. Usually my limit is about $100. I usually try not to go after anything that someone's wanting over $100 for. But like I said, that story, I had to have it just because I knew that game would sell.
Well, all right. Sounds good. So one thing I usually like to ask the people who are on the podcast is, where did your name come from? So how did you think of NESJourney? Yeah,
so honestly, when I started my channel, it was really, I don't want to say out of boredom, but I had just switched jobs. I was working this second shift. I had all this time in the morning with my wife and my daughter out of the house, and it was just like, I'm extremely bored. Like, I have like 6 or 8 hours in the morning time. I was just sitting there playing video games. I was watching Netflix and stuff like this. I was like, you know what? I need to do something with my time. And I was like, well, what am I going to do? I was like, I'll start a blog. I was like, that'll be cool. So I started a blog. It's NESJourney.com. So, anytime I say, this is Kevin from NESJourney.com, I'm not lying. That is my website.
Oh, okay.
And so I was like, if I'm going to blog about the video games, I might as well videotape myself doing it. So then I started the YouTube channel pretty much the same day, maybe a couple days apart.
Oh, perfect.
And then the channel just grew at such a faster pace. I get, I think as of right now, I have like 1,500 views on my YouTube channel.
Ooh.
And I probably have like 100 views on my blog site. Like, no one really wants to read a blog. And I'm probably not the best, writer in the world. So that kind of gets pushed to the back a lot. But basically, my blog is about my Nintendo journey, so my NES journey to go back and play all the games that I never played as a child.
Oh, okay. That's a pretty cool concept. I know that your Illusions of, is it Gaia?
Yeah, Illusions of Gaia.
That is probably the longest running series you have right now. Is that your favorite game, or is that just one that's it's that long?
So, yeah, with that game, that is probably, I would say, at least top 10 for my Super Nintendo games that I've played. But it'll probably start going down in the list just because I've not played that many games, I've probably played maybe, 50 Super Nintendo games if I had to take a wild guess. I don't know. But I just happened to come across it again in a bundle, and I was like, I need to play this game again. And so I was like, let's just do it for the channel. It's a pretty long game, so I'll space it out. I don't want people to be bored watching me play a game for 8 hours in one video. So I was like, we'll do 30-minute increments, and it just took 20 episodes to get it done.
Well, I think the series is running pretty well so far.
It's pretty good. It didn't get as much view time as I thought it would, but from what I remember as a kid, the game was a lot better back then than what it is now. I mean, it's still a very good game, but it's very slow paced, and there's a lot of dialogue and a lot of slow moving parts, which I don't think make for very good video.
Okay, yeah. A lot of games, like, they don't age well. I think the most recent one that I've discovered is not aging really that well is what was it called? Oh shoot, the Burnout Paradise game that actually just got remastered. It didn't age really that well at all, and I it's kind of unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, some games do and some games don't.
So, with the mini consoles coming out, there's a Super Nintendo console, there's a regular Nintendo Entertainment console. What other consoles would you want to see come out in the future that are mini versions of them?
So yeah, they got the NES and the Super NES. If they don't come out with a 64 one, I mean, we'll just have to bring a lawsuit against Nintendo because that'll just be unfortunate. They definitely need to do that. I don't know what games they would put on there. Of course, Mario and Zelda's. I honestly wish that they would charge more money and put every single game on there, and people would. I mean, people already flock to the stores for these things.
Right.
Can you imagine if they said, okay, we'll do a $200 system, but it'll be the entire library? Man, people would be like giving away their firstborn for stuff like that.
It would probably get pretty crazy, even more crazy than the original one.
You can hack them,
yeah,
and put the whole thing on there, but it's not quite the same thing. If it was like officially licensed entire library, done deal, take my money, here you go.
Yeah, I'd really want an N64 one, because that was the console I had when I was growing up as a kid, and always a lot of fond memories from that one, like Diddy Kong Racing and Donkey Kong Country 64 and Banjo-Kazooie, of course, which is my favorite game of all time, still to this day. So it'd be pretty cool to have a little tiny N64 in the house.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely buy one. I have a Super Nintendo Classic one. I was not able to get my hands on, nor was I gonna pay scalper prices for a NES Classic.
Yeah,
but I'll eventually get one. But
yeah, I'm sure the price will come down as as more and more come out. Hopefully, more and more come out.
Yeah, let's hope.
So there are a lot of remastered games coming out too, with Spyro being the latest one that everyone is pretty excited for. Is there any is there any game that hasn't gotten the remaster treatment yet that you are really itching for?
Ooh, honestly, yeah, I don't know. I really want to play Secret of Mana on the PS4. My friend Brett has it, so we'll actually probably end up playing that for the channel at some point.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Just because it just looks awesome. I mean, some people were kind of like, I'm like, that is Secret of Mana, and it is awesome graphics. Like, just close your mouth. So that's gonna be a great game. I think Demi played that game. Was Demi V Gaming? I think he played some of that game.
Yeah, I think so. I think I saw that on his channel too.
So I'll probably wait a little while before I put it on ours, just because no one wants to watch it twice. But we'll definitely want to play that because it's fun. I honestly don't know. I don't know of too many Nintendo games getting remastered that I know of. So honestly, I don't really have an answer for that question.
Yeah, I think
actually, you know what would be really awesome is if they could redo 007 GoldenEye with some better graphics and a little bit better on the controls, but keep the game exactly the same as far as levels. I'd definitely buy that.
Yeah, if you remember, there was that 007 GoldenEye game that came out for like the PS3 and Xbox 360 era. That was supposedly supposed to be the remaster version of the GoldenEye with pretty much all the other movies in it. Ooh, did that stink? That was. Oh,
I don't think I've ever played that. So
well, you don't need to.
Well, maybe a remaster is not in the books for that one then.
Well, maybe they'll go back to the original one. Like, I think that one was very loosely related to the original game, and I think they just put GoldenEye on there just to get people excited for it, if you know what I mean.
Ah, gotcha.
But I think one of the first scenes in that game is you're coming through a vent, and there's a guy in the toilet, and you need to do quick time events to kill him on the toilet. And I was like, what am I playing right now?
Yeah, that's actually the second game, the laboratory, but yeah, it's or the second level, sorry. But yeah, it's I have so many memories with that game. I think a few years back I picked it up to play again, but the controls are so outrageously hard to get a hold of, like when you're used to playing like modern games. Right. So for a first-person shooter, but it's still a fun game. The multiplayer is where it's at anyway.
That's true.
No golden gun and no short round. Those are the rules.
Yeah. Well, we are actually getting close to the end time, so this is probably going to be the final question. But I know you're a big Mario fan, correct?
Correct.
So what would be your favorite Mario game of all time?
Oh, wow. That's a tough question. Well, since I've played the first three for the NES most recently, I'll just give you my order that I like those three in, because I don't really like playing anything past those. I mean, Super Mario is good, but Mario 64 and beyond, I never really played those too much, so I won't even include those. So I'd have to say Mario 2 is my top, and then Mario the original 1, and then 3. So that's probably a very controversial listing of those, but that's where they stand with me.
I was about to say, a lot of people I think it's number 3 that everyone likes the best.
I think it's 3, 1, 2 is what most people would probably say.
So what makes number 2 stand out to you then?
Honestly, I just like it because it's so different. And, some people will say, even my friend Brett will say, it's not even really a Mario game. It's Doki Doki with Mario sprites. I'm like, I don't care. I love it.
Hey, that's all. That's all that matters.
Yeah, exactly.
Besides from Mario, do you have any other or Zelda, I should say, besides from Mario and Zelda, are there any other long-running series that you still enjoy to this day?
I think those are probably the only ones that I actually play that like have multiple sequels and like redos and stuff like that. So, pretty much, like my title says, I'm on this journey to play a lot more. Everybody thinks that I'm like the Nintendo expert, I guess, just because of my name.
Right.
But I'm really not. I'm like really a noob when it comes to all of this stuff. And, I just played Double Dragons for the first time, and, stuff like that. So I have a lot to learn. And, I do that by interacting with people on Twitter and different people's channels and stuff like that. So, I definitely love them. I love all the old games, but I'm still a noob, and I have a lot to learn and definitely a lot to play.
That's your journey. That's right. Final question here. Dr. Mario or Tetris?
Oh, wow. I'm horrible at both, but I would pick Tetris just because I have very fond memories playing that with my mom.
Well,
she's actually probably a Tetris grandmaster.
Really?
She can beat Tetris probably with her eyes closed. To this day, probably.
Wow. That takes a lot of skill.
She had a lot of time to play.
All right. Well, thank you again to NESJourney for joining me on this journey in this episode of the podcast, especially during one of his breaks at work. I really appreciate it. Like I said, his Twitter and his YouTube, the channel links will be in the description below. Go down there, check out his channel. If you like what you see, hit that subscribe button. NESJourney, do you have anything else you want to add before we go?
Just that, I really appreciate the exposure, and I really appreciate being a part of this. It's actually a really great thing you're doing. I enjoy every single podcast that you put out. Very professional sounding. The questions are always outstanding, and I like how you take it to kind of a personal level too. You don't just keep it on just the channels or anything like that. So it's definitely good stuff, Yemmy. Definitely good stuff.
Oh, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Well, I guess that's all the time we have for today. I am your host, Yemmy the Ferret, and this has been an episode of the Ferret Business Podcast.